Reactive Training Systems.
In this episode of the RTS podcast, Mike, Paulie, and Matt discuss the finer points of owning a training facility.
All right, hey everyone, welcome back to the RTS podcast. I'm Mike Tashir. I've got Matt Gary and Paul Steinman on the line with me today, and we're going to be talking about what it's like to have a gym. But first, before we get into all that, it's a beautiful day here in Colorado, so I decided to sit outside. So if you guys hear any bird noises or anything like that, that's why. How about you guys? What's it like over there on the East Coast?
Today in Maryland, it's actually very nice. We've been experiencing a lot of humidity, but today we've been blessed with a very temperate day. We got the door open at the gym, and it's not very sticky.
Yeah, I would say the same for Brooklyn. Not very sticky is a good thing on the East Coast in August.
Yeah,
we'll take it.
Amen.
Well, hopefully we keep a lot of listeners around by starting off talking about the weather. But
but very exciting. Good night, everybody.
Right.
Exactly. See ya.
Yeah. Well, since we're talking about gyms and gym ownership, Matt, you already mentioned having the doors open at your place.
Yep.
Sounds like SSPT's a no AC kind of place, right?
That's right. Yeah, we don't have any air conditioning, so we joke that we provide a free sauna through July and August. Yeah, it can get pretty hot and sticky, but we find that most people like to be warm while they train. So whenever it's possible or appropriate, we like to keep the door open, which lets the sunshine in. We get some fresh air, and I think it really adds to the atmosphere and the environment. Kind of opens the place up a little bit, and people occasionally walk outside to clear their mind or get some fresh air in between sets or that sort of thing. So,
yeah. And
being that we're only 2,000 square feet, it does give it a nice, kind of indoor-outdoor feel when we can do it. So as often as possible, we like to keep the door open. When it gets too obnoxiously humid, then we'll keep it down and run our fans, at high speed with the dehumidifiers and that sort of thing. But I would say more often than not, we like to keep it open.
Yeah, having been there, I can kind of echo that sentiment that it's a nice feel, when you can just kind of come and go freely inside, outside, and whatever. It does add to the atmosphere, I think.
Yep, for sure.
Let's back up a little bit. So both of you guys have gyms. Matt, like you mentioned, you're in Maryland, and you have SSPT. Paul, like you mentioned, you're in Brooklyn, and you have the South Brooklyn Weightlifting Club. Matt, kind of keep it on you for a second. When did you start SSPT?
We opened our doors in January of 2009. So we've been in business, I guess it's 6.5 years now.
Okay.
And I think the idea of SSPT was born before that, and it probably took us roughly 1 calendar year to actually implement our business plan and get our equipment in order and find a space and physically open as a location. So, the gears were in turning, the wheels were in motion, if you will, in late 2007, early 2008, but we officially opened for business in 2009.
Okay. Paulie, how about you? When did South Brooklyn Weightlifting Club kind of become a thing?
We opened in the early 2010. And at that point, I actually still had, Becca and I had another business. We had a screen printing and embroidery business. And we had extra space, and I had started to take it over and put gym equipment in, because it really started out of my own personal need for a place to train the way that I wanted to train. And I couldn't find anything like that around. So it started in 2010. About 3.5 years ago, we moved to a much larger, more accessible location. And so we're very similar to SSPT in in kind of space. We have 3,000 square feet, and we're same thing. When it's nice out, we keep the garage doors open. It's kind of a funny story where people who join our gym in the summer actually don't know how to get into our gym when it gets cold because they don't realize that there's another door. They're used to just walking in through the garage door. So that's happened every year where people kind of start banging on the garage door and they look very confused, and they have to motion towards a door, and they'll eventually figure it out. But yeah.
So what inspired you? Well, you said that it kind of was inspired as part of your own training, having extra space, and it just kind of grew from there. Matt, do you have kind of a similar origin story for SSPT?
Yeah, I would say we kind of shared a similar story. I mean, also to add to that, I guess Susie and I were training at another facility very close by, actually within a mile of SSPT, and I was doing most of my strength coaching and powerlifting coaching out of this facility, and the owner at the time was gracious enough to kind of allow me to commandeer a corner back there where I had, a few pieces of equipment and a couple bars, etc. But we just really started to outgrow that corner. We had people coming into our little area and starting to use our equipment and then abuse our equipment. And it just got to the point where Susan and I just desperately wanted to do things our way in our own space. And that's kind of how the idea of SSPT was born. We just thought, hey, we can do this better. We can do it on our own. We can set our rules, our standards, our expectations, our own equipment, and do it the right way. And so that's kind of how it was born. It was just out of that corner. We just wanted to expand a little bit.
That's interesting. Okay. And also we should probably note that although we've been saying gyms, you guys own a gym and the gym is here and the gym is this, they're not really gyms in the traditional sense of gyms. They're really more like barbell clubs, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of my biggest, I answer that question a lot for prospective members because they're very busy comparing us to a gym, and I have to kind of take time to differentiate and say we're more of a training facility. We're a barbell club that participates really in two sports, the sport of powerlifting and the sport of Olympic weightlifting. So it's not what they would expect, and because usually people are trying to kind of get their heads around what we really are. And so it's work for us to explain to people. But I think as time goes on, people are catching on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
I would add to that. I agree with everything that Paulie just said, and it's funny because I always use the analogy that there's actually there's 9 other, if you want to call them gyms or fitness facilities, within essentially a 1 mile radius of SSPT, but we are absolutely the only game in town. We've got kind of a niche market, if you will, and so we're not competing with any of them. So when people come into our facility, we don't have to twist anybody's arm, for them to sign up. So they either look at the place and they're like, my gosh, this is a mecca. This is exactly what I've been looking for, or they're completely uninterested and do an about face and leave. And that's exactly, frankly, what we want. We're exclusive by what we offer and also exclusive by what we don't offer. So people come in and they recognize the quality of the equipment, they recognize the atmosphere, the seriousness, and the trainees, the attention to detail and so forth, and that's exactly what they want, or they're completely blown out of the water and they want, the racquetball, the sauna, the juice bar, the massage, and I send them right down the road. So, and that way everybody's happy because, frankly, we want to facilitate the type of environment where people can come in and learn and train hard and be coached and leave better, as opposed to just coming in and going through the motions. And frankly, you know what? I don't begrudge people, if they want those things. But if you want to stand on a treadmill and watch TV, then I'm going to tell you to head down the street and, take a left. So.
No, I think it's a really good point, and that's something that's important for any business really, is to have a really clear idea of who your clientele are. you know. And if you guys are sitting in a spot where you're like, look, man, if you can't appreciate, you know, Eleiko plates and you'd rather go play squash, then that's fine. You know, that it just means that we're not for you, you know.
That's right.
It's much easier for us that way as well, because we have clearly defined ourselves, for like Matt said, for what we are and for what we're not. And same thing, we're surrounded by we're surrounded by CrossFits. We're surrounded by, they're within a 3-block radius. There's a rock climbing gym. There's an archery center. There's a fencing center. 2 chain gyms are going to open up probably within the next 6 months or to a year. In addition to all the gyms that are around here, there's plenty of options for people. And we really don't work very hard to sell people on joining this place. People do their homework, and if they want a place to powerlift, if they want a place to get better, if they want a place to get strong, then this is a great option for them.
Yeah. I think that's really cool. Like, so you mentioned that there are 2 chain gyms that are opening near you, but I know, from talking to you now and talking to you in the past, like, you really don't seem to be concerned about it that much. And I think a lot of it has to do with you've differentiated your product, that, you're providing a product, a service as a gym that's just fundamentally not what, you're going to get at a 24-hour fitness. So, I mean, it would be like, any gym owner is not going to be concerned if a Burger King opens down the street. Like, it's not even the same thing, and, I think I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's probably a similar sort of feeling that you've got right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And I think initially, obviously, I'm worried because I don't know how I'm going to make, just bring in members and kind of make money as a gym owner. I don't know how, but one of the things is just, we stick to our game. And it's worked out. So it gives us more confidence as we go forward. It doesn't hurt that there's more recognition for powerlifting and Olympic weightlifting. Things have changed a lot in the last 5.5 years since we've been opened. But I don't worry. I don't think I'd even worry, frankly, if there was a powerlifting gym that opened down the block from us. Yeah. Just because we've created our voice. There is. South Brooklyn Weightlifting Club is its own organism, if you will. That's kind of just unique to itself and unique to gyms. Yeah.
Well, was it that way when you guys started? So both of you kind of echo the same sort of sentiments. So when you first started, was it that way, or did you kind of need some time to evolve into more of a barbell club sort of idea? I mean, I know you were both training before you opened, but was it an evolution in some sense?
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of like sourdough, right? It doesn't have. It takes a while to kind of develop that flavor and develop that culture, if you will. And
very New York answer, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. We always come back to some kind of artisanal food being in Brooklyn. Next thing you know, I'll be talking about beards and man buns. But but in that sense, we have. It took time to kind of develop a culture. It took time for South Brooklyn Weightlifting Club to develop its voice, its coaching voice, its philosophy, et cetera, and then it takes time for that to proliferate. And I was just talking to someone the other day, and I think it's a cool thing where our gym is growing enough where people kind of are moving on with their lives, or say they were here just for school or so on and so forth. They're moving to another part of the country, and now they're bringing that culture to somewhere else with them. And so hopefully, we can just kind of, we've put a little bit of South Brooklyn Weightlifting Club into the lifter, kind of just in the way that we train, and they can bring that out to the rest of the world.
Nice. Matt, pretty much same for you. That's
yeah, I would say I would speak with a similar tenor there. I think that it's taken us some time to. There's been obviously a little bit of evolution and some refinement over time in terms of our voice and exactly the way that we do things. But I think our vision at the beginning, right from Jump Street, was very narrow and very focused. And I think that we've hit the nail on the head, at least from our perspective, in terms of we knew what we wanted to be, we knew how we wanted to do it, and now we're living it, day in and day out. And we're just very blessed in that way, So, and as Paulie said, Paulie's facility and our place, we're both USAPL platinum level regional training centers. And I mean, there's so many people that I know that know about South Brooklyn. And I know that there's a lot of people up in that area that know about SSPT. And both of our facilities, thank God, are known nationally. I mean, I know people that travel and, that are coming from California, and they email me and they're like, hey, I'm going to be on the East Coast. Where do I train? And of course, the first two places I mentioned are our place and Paulie's place. And so it's good. And then, Paulie and Becca do a great job with their, members and their clientele. And now they've got an extended, South Brooklyn Weightlifting Club family, that extends across the country. And we feel the same way at SSPT. So, it's kind of the tentacles of our organizations, if you will, kind of reach pretty far. And I think that's, that speaks to us and the people that we are and that we try to be. And fortunately, we're blessed by good quality people that cross our paths. So
Yeah, and I know both of you have spent a lot of time coaching. Like, it's not just a facility that's open, hey, come here and lift weights, but there's a significant coaching aspect to it as well, which I'm sure helps that helps build those relationships.
Absolutely.
Shifting gears just a little bit, seeing as you both have facilities and they're both successful facilities, what sort of advice would you give to somebody who was just kind of starting out, who wanted to maybe open a facility that's similar? Is there any sort of advice that you would give them?
There's a lot of advice.
Yeah.
Now it's up to them if they actually want to listen. But
right.
It's the same thing as coaching. I mean, always thinking about it. My knee-jerk kind of gut answer is don't do it. And I say that just because I want to temper anybody's expectations when they open a gym. Everybody thinks, I'm going to open a gym and I'm just going to have all this time to train and I'm going to have so much fun with all my friends and we're just going to all hang out and it's just going to be a giant party. And I know people are thinking that, and you can confront them directly with it and they'll say, oh no, I'm not thinking that, but yes, they're thinking it. I was thinking it. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to hang out with my friends. And so for the first few months it's fun, but then you get tired.
Yeah.
And then you realize that you have to make money and you have to make decisions and you're responsible, and you have to make decisions that not just affect you, but they affect the people around you. And you realize that you're responsible for people, like people are coming into you and they're more or less entrusting you with their lives. They're lifting heavy, they're training hard. They're looking to you to make decisions that could make or break their training career. So it's a lot of responsibility, and plus then we have to keep the lights on and the doors open, literally.
So it's kind of like a coaching thing. Like, look, we're not buddies. We can be friendly toward each other, but there's a delineation between. At some point, you have to make tough calls, and that's not always the same thing that you would do if we're all just friends here. There's a bit of professionalism, it sounds like, from listening to you talk. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And there has to be, and sometimes that line is hard to find because you want to be, you see these are all people. These are all people, but at the same time, especially when we're face to face and we see them every day, and we see them 3-4 times a week. but at the same, you know, you got to be tough. And I definitely have a reputation for being somewhat grumpy in the gym at times. And frankly, you know, maybe I'm kind of revealing a little bit too much, but I'd rather have that reputation than being the super friendly guy, because you know, I need to get my point across sometimes, and it's
Right.
not it's not my agenda. It's the agenda of the lifter. If someone comes to me and they tell me that they want to be a national champion, I am going to push them as best and as safely as possible to become that national champion. But you know, and if they change their mind, they better tell me, because then they can't be all upset when I'm still pushing them and they've given up. So you know, it's like we can't be friends that way. I'll look after them, but I can't
Right.
necessarily.
It's just not all, you know, backslaps and high fives, right?
No way. Not at all.
All right, Matt. What's your kind of best advice for somebody who's just opening up a new facility? Maybe they want to model it after you guys.
Yeah, first of all, I would say ditto to everything that Paulie just said, so I'm not going to repeat that, but I agree with him wholeheartedly. I guess if there was three main pieces of advice that I would recommend for somebody who's just starting is number one, start small. So everybody's got these delusions of grandeur and these large facilities and umpteen platforms and cages and racks and weights coming out of their ears. But let me tell you, like Paulie said, you still got to keep the lights on, and you've got to pay the bills, and square footage. Additional square footage means more space that you have to furnish and more space that you have to clean and more people that you would need to monitor your facility. So one of my biggest recommendations is to start small. Being forced to expand is a good problem to have, because it means you are prosperous. But if you open and you start out too big and you can't meet your bills and you can't keep the lights on, then you're going to be in trouble. So I would say start small. The second thing I would say is to be focused, almost singularly focused. Much like South Brooklyn, SSPT does primarily two things, powerlifting and weightlifting. And we are expert in both disciplines. We don't try to beat anything else. We don't try to, we're not speed consultants. We're not, conditioning specialists. We do powerlifting and weightlifting. Are we knowledgeable in some of the areas? Yeah. And we can get the job done, but we consider ourselves some of the best in those other two disciplines. So, being singularly focused or minimalistic in your approach, whatever adjective you want to use, that would be my second piece of advice. And then in terms of a financial standpoint, you've got to ask yourself, because most facilities, just the reality is that in the first, 3 to 5 years, you're going to be losing money. So yeah, you've got to ask yourself if you can afford to do that for the first 3 to 5 years. And
did that come as a surprise to you, or were you expecting that as well? I mean, I came as a surprise, then the story could turn out differently. So,
yeah, I don't want to say we were surprised. I will say this: we opened at a very odd time. We opened in 2009 when the economy was pretty bad, and so we did our due diligence in terms of writing out a business plan and determining roughly how many members we were going to have, because, as I mentioned earlier, our location, we were only 1 mile from the other facility we were working at. So we had a super high client retention. I only lost one person. So, because people couldn't make the excuse that the location was 20 miles north or something. It was essentially the same location. So we maintained everybody. So we were able at the beginning to make realistic projections of how much money we were going to have coming in terms of membership and coaching and that sort of thing. So I think we were safe in that regard. And Susie and I are also very fortunate that we came into this situation with flawless credit, zero debt. And also we were, financially in a position where we didn't necessarily have to take out a loan, but of course we did, just to provide a cushion and to cover ourselves. And of course we paid off that loan very quickly. But, a lot of people are not in that position financially, and that's fine. I'm not saying that you have to be, like we were, but you just have to, you have to make sure that you can afford to take a few steps back before you take a few more forward.
And I would add to that something very important. In addition to everything that Matt has said, is that you cannot make your decisions based on your emotions.
Yep.
Just because you think or you really want that new bar, or you want an extra set of plates, you need to sit down and you need to look at the numbers, and that translates to coaching too. You don't make your attempts based on emotions. It's very, very similar. So just everything that Matt said, where do your homework again, and then have somebody else check it, and that should help you kind of succeed. There's plenty of ways to fail in this. There's plenty of ways to fail.
Yeah. So going along with that, was there something that you guys thought was maybe a bit surprising when you first opened your facility? Like, what's the big surprise? Like, man, I didn't think that there would be, I don't know, this much stuff to clean up, or anything. Could be anything. What was a surprise for you guys?
We'll let you start, Matt.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Susie and I both knew that it was going to be a lot of hard work. I don't know if we knew the hours were going to be that crazy, to be honest with you. So, unless you have it mapped out where you've already got a staff in place, let me tell you, it was just Susie and I round the clock. And our hours are from 6 a.m. to 9 Monday through Friday, and 8 to 4 on Saturday. I think that works out to like 75 hours throughout the week, and we were there for every damn one of them. And, fortunately our house is within a mile of SSPT, so that was good. But let me tell you, man, we put in a ton of work. I would say probably for the first 6 to 8 months before we could find another employee who could help us to, cover some shifts and perhaps close the gym in the evening for us and so forth. So I think that was one of the biggest shocks to our system, because just like Paulie alluded to earlier, in the beginning, everybody's gung-ho, and you just open your doors, and it is about rah-rah and all this training, and you're using the new equipment, and you're riding this emotional high and this adrenaline high, and let me tell you, that fades. and you kind of do a crash and burn, and you're just absolutely burnt out and exhausted. So I think hitting that line probably, was like a punch in the gut, if you will.
Yeah, just realizing that you have responsibilities, and that and kind of, I think and I agree with everything that Matt has said, and we're still in that kind of that position since. All of our sessions here are coached, and it's always been kind of, I'd say 95% of the sessions are run by myself and Becca. So we're still kind of averaging 12-hour days. We take one morning off a week, and we're closed on Sundays. We're just at that point now where we're starting to hire more people. But I think one of the hardest things, and maybe this is the surprise, is being able to kind of replicate our culture in other staff members, in other people to come in, because it seems like a lot of the people that have come in that we've hired in the past, everybody wants to start their own gym. And it's almost like they want to start their own gym inside of our gym. And that's not going to fly. So some of that is just kind of figuring out how to get the right people in, and how to manage the people, and how to manage culture. And there's a lot more to it than, say, just opening doors, turning on the lights, and say, hey, come in and lift.
Yeah. Kind of to go along with that, Matt, and specifically for you, what is the training atmosphere like for you guys? Let's say during peak time, are you guys like out there on the floor coaching people, or do you let people kind of do their own thing? What's that atmosphere like?
Yeah, I know that our facility is a little bit different way, than South Brooklyn. I mean, we operate essentially like any other gym, if you will, in terms of memberships. So people can come and they purchase a membership, and they're free to come in and train themselves on their own, pretty much whenever they want to. Obviously, if they want one-on-one coaching from any one of our 5 coaches, then that's made by appointment only. And so we're not like the haircuttery. You can't just walk in and say, hey, I want to have a squat session with a coach. All those appointments need to be made in advance. But to get back to your original question in terms of atmosphere, depending upon the day, and but kind of during prime time, which I would say is the late afternoon to early evening. If Susie and I are there and we also happen to be training at the same time, then we're out on the floor, amidst the other members, and we're training, elbow to elbow right with them. And, they're either training themselves, or they might be working with one of our other coaches, or they might be working with one of their training partners or something like that. So we're all training side by side, and there's a great, energy, that kind of flows along with that as well. But our sessions are not done in groups, and I know that, Paulie and Becca run some group stuff up at South Brooklyn, so ours is a little bit different in that regard. So we have kind of clusters, if you will, of people, who will train in their own little groups or cliques, and we're all kind of one larger family, but you might have, 2 or 3 or 4 that kind of train together at the same times, and so hopefully that kind of answers your question in terms of that.
Yeah, certainly. And so, Paulie, your sessions are a bit more coached. What else? What else is kind of different about the atmosphere at South Brooklyn?
It's funny. It's probably not different maybe from other gyms, but not necessarily different from SSPT. Just in the sense of the quality of training that goes on, the focus of the lifters. We are out on the floor coaching all the time. So whenever our gym is open, for our normal sessions, our evening sessions run from 4:30 till 9 p.m. and peak time is pretty much from 6 to 8, I would say, when people are just kind of making their way over from work. A lot of times the same people will show up at the same time, so they become each other's training partners. We've trained everybody in the gym, obviously had a spot properly, so they'll on bench, squat, wherever's needed, they'll know to spot each other. People know to ask and how to ask for the spots. And we're kind of giving oversight. We're answering questions. We also kind of help allocate people depending on what the training is, because we write the training for our lifters as well. Depending on what their training is, we'll set them up to work together in smaller groups, and usually we'll set people by their strength or their height, or if we have a couple ER racks here, and that makes it obviously easier because we can make fast adjustments, so it doesn't matter if there's a big difference in height, especially if they're the same strength. So you could say that we will group people by abilities, and also there's a lot of times where on purpose I'll put a novice with a veteran, just so that they can kind of learn from each other. Just in the novice, the veterans, like the people I know that I'm putting a novice with as a training partner for the day, that person's going to say, hey, the clips are over there, or this is what you do here, and so on and so forth, and that helps kind of pass on the culture of the gym. Yeah. We don't have music and we don't have mirrors. And I think for some people coming in, that's a shock. And I don't allow anybody to wear baseball caps in the gym, and I don't even want somebody to wear a headset or listen to music. They can listen to music in between, but to me, it interferes with being coached. If they're coming to our gym, they want to be coached. How can they hear us if they've got something in their ears?
Yeah, I think that's a specific atmosphere, a specific culture sort of decision that you've made. And of course, it's going to strike different people different ways. I think it would appeal to probably to most of us who are listening to this, kind of appreciate that sort of deliberate type of mentality. And Paulie, I know you and I have talked in the past on podcasts and whatnot about sustainable training. I think it kind of goes to making that type of sustainable atmosphere. And Matt, if I'm not mistaken, you guys have music, but I mean, we're not talking about, cranking up the volume on Slayer or something like that. It's simply meant to be like a background type of thing, right?
Yeah, for the most part, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that's interesting, and both of your gyms have produced athletes, high quality, top shelf athletes. So I don't know, like the saying goes, success leaves clues. Certainly there are people who do well with a lot of external stimuli, but as we talked about in the past, as far as advocating for this type of training where you more of a workman type attitude that seems to come up quite a bit. I think there's something there. There's something to it. It's not just an isolated lifter here and there that comes from that type of background. It seems to be more of a systematic way of going about doing things.
And it's definitely not for everybody, and I'm very happy with that, because as it is now, we're not a huge gym. We wouldn't be able to accommodate everybody, and I want people in here who want to stick around, and I want people in our gym who want to work, and who want to get strong. Yeah.
That's a really interesting way of looking at it, and it's not just a gym owning perspective, but just a business perspective, in the larger sense, like who are your clientele, who are you targeting this toward, and it doesn't have to be everything for everybody. Like the saying goes, like I'd rather have like 1,000 like raving fans rather than 10,000 people that are just kind of lukewarm about the whole thing. So anyway, taking up a lot of your guys' time, and I appreciate you guys sitting in with me. Matt, if somebody wants to connect with you guys, find out more about SSPT, find out more about your training methods and stuff like that, where do they go to find out about you?
Yeah, of course, we've got a website, which is just Supreme Sports PT, which is all one word, supremesportspt.com. As I said earlier, we're also listed on USA Powerlifting because we're a USAPL platinum level training center. And of course, on Facebook, we've got a Facebook group page, which is just Supreme Sports Performance and Training, which is long for SSPT, so you can connect with us there. And, our email addresses, everything is easily accessible from all those avenues as well.
Okay, cool. Paulie, what about you guys? If we want to connect with South Brooklyn, where do we go to do that?
You can, on the web, it's southbrooklynwc.com. Facebook, it's Facebook, southbrooklynwc.com, or just look up South Brooklyn Weightlifting Club. As Matt said, we are also a platinum regional training center, so you can find us through USA Powerlifting. And if all else fails, just Google Powerlifting Brooklyn, and I think we come up at the top of the list. So yeah, and you know what? If people want to powerlift, if people want to powerlift in our region, they'll definitely find us. And we're out there, and it's on the lifter to find us, and then we'll take it from there.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate your time. And everybody watching, thanks for watching. Hope you guys learned something, especially those of you out there who are thinking about opening a facility, either soon or down the road. Hope you took something away from this. Make sure to check us out on Facebook as well. We have a Facebook page, Reactive Training Systems. Just take a search for that, and we try to post updates there on new goings on. I know we've got a new website in the works and a bunch of other cool stuff. So follow that, and that'll help you guys stay connected with us a little bit closer. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time.